Hello and welcome. You're watching News Central Television. I am Judith at TV. Here are the stories making headlines beyond the continent. And let's begin in Europe, as Europe's union leaders meeting in Brussels on Monday have warned that a potential trade war with the United States would have no winners, vowing to retaliate if U.S. President Donald Trump follows through on threats to impose new tariffs on the bloc. French President Emmanuel Macron insisted that the EU must assert its strength, stating that Europe will not back down if Washington moves forward with its trade measures. The 27 EU leaders, along with Britain's Prime Minister and NATO's Secretary General, had gathered in the Belgian capital to discuss European defense strategies amid rising tensions with Russia. However, their talks were overshadowed by Trump's recent tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico, with Europe potentially next in line. This comes as a familiar battle back in 2018. During his first term, Trump imposed tariffs on European steel and aluminum, prompting the EU to hit back with its own higher duties.
Die USA wie Europa profitieren vom Warenaustausch, vom Austausch von Dienstleistungen. Wenn jetzt Zollpolitik das schwierig macht, dann wäre das schlecht für die USA, schlecht für Europa. Klar ist, als starker Wirtschaftsraum können wir selber unsere Dinge gestalten und können auch auf Zollpolitiken mit Zollpolitiken reagieren. Das müssen und werden.
Well, I think Europe has been a bit lazy on the topic of defense. Mr. Putin has woken us up. I think we should spend more on defense, and the Belgian government has decided certainly to do so, and our budget is the proof that we are going to do it. I think we need to keep the relationship with the United States going, but having said that, reinforcing European defense on its own in the partnership of NATO and in the partnership of the transatlantic Atlantic Alliance is the way to go.
On immigration.
We have to, during our possible talks with the American friends, I think we cannot lose, of course, common sense. We cannot lose the awareness of our interest, but at the same time, we cannot lose our European self-respect.
For more on this, I'm joined by international correspondent Afia Hagen. Afia, just tell us, what's the latest on the Trump-ignited trade war with Mexico, China, and Canada?
Well, we heard just a couple of hours ago that the 25% tariff that was supposed to be imposed on Mexico has been given a 1-month reprieve. And that was because of a conversation between President Trump of the United States and President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. And she has agreed to send an extra 10,000 troops to the Mexico border to help secure it and to help stop the flow of fentanyl. Now, this was one of the reasons why Trump was imposing the tariff in the first place, because he said that Mexico didn't have a hand on the flow of drugs into the country. So he was going to impose those 25% tariffs. Now, the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, gave the news conference earlier on today, and she basically said that a wide cross-section of Mexican society, including state governors, chambers of commerce, lawmakers, and industry, supported her and supported the fact that she said a 25% tariff was not necessary, and they all came together to say that Mexico deserves better than this. Now, Trump has spoken to the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau earlier on today, due to speak to him again at 3 p.m. Washington time. Not sure what their conversation will entail, but I'm sure that he will want the same reprieve if he can get it. I mean, Justin Trudeau will want that as well. But at the moment, China still has that threat of a 10% tariff looming over it also, and China says it is going to hit their argument against the tariff to the World Trade Organization later on this week.
And how have China, Canada, and Mexico reacted to this threat or this threatened trade war?
Well, in Canada, there's talk of a lot of American-made goods coming off shelf immediately. So liquor, particularly as well, coming off the shelves. And there's been a real campaign for Canadian people to buy and support Canadian goods. In China, they're taking their argument against this to the World Trade Organization. Now, I'm not sure how effective that will be. That could be just pie in the sky. I'm not sure what they can possibly say about that. They're going to file a case against the tariffs at the Geneva-based institution. Now, a couple of years ago, the World Trade Organization won a ruling that said that tariffs on steel and aluminium during Trump's first term broke the rules, and that's what they are going on and they are leaning on. That hopefully they might rule that this again will be illegal. But yes, Mexico in a better position than they were perhaps this time yesterday, but all these countries agreeing that putting tariffs on their goods coming into America is bad, but particularly bad for American people who buy the goods because the cost of them is just going to go up.
And the EU leaders seems to be on the edge. It begs to ask a bigger question, whether could other countries be at risk from Trump's tariffs as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Trump said earlier on today that the EU was going to have tariffs imposed. He hasn't said when or how much. He's also said the UK is at risk of having tariffs imposed as well, although he thinks he can work that out with Sir Keir Starmer. But the question now becomes, what is the point of the tariffs? Is the tariffs actually about raising some extra money for the United States? Is it really about making sure that there's a proper tax, as he feels, on goods coming into the country? Or is it about getting countries to capitulate and do what he wants? It's not coincidental that a 1-month reprieve has been put on tariffs to Mexico in exchange for 10,000 extra troops being sent to the Mexican border. That's what Trump wants. You know, that's what he wants, the border to be secured in a way that he wants without using his troops. So actually, it's what is the reason for the tariffs? And it seems to be this, like I said, it's about capitulation. It's about getting countries to do what Trump wants. And if we really dig into the minutiae of tariffs, of what they mean, of what they can mean for American consumers, it's not a good thing. But if you're talking about Trump and his expansionist tendencies, then yes, it's about getting him to do what countries want, and that is what the tariffs will be used for.
Well, power hungry, if you ask me. Afia, many thanks for doing this with us. Afia Hagen, just a bit of insight on the threatened trade war by Donald Trump, President of the United States of America. We switch gears from America to France, as French Prime Minister Francois Bayrou has invoked Article 49.3 of the Constitution for the first time in his tenure, bypassing parliamentary approval to push through the 2025 budget proposal. Bayrou triggered the controversial constitutional measure on Monday, allowing the government to pass the budget without a vote. He used the tactic twice, once for the national budget and again for the Social Security budget, and hinted it may be necessary again later this week. Defending the decision, Bayrou pledged that the budget would help reduce France's deficit, following repeated warnings from the European Commission that the country's public finances are under strain. The move is expected to fuel tensions in the French parliament, with opposition parties weighing their next steps, including a potential no-confidence motion.
Si vous en décidez ainsi, puisque la décision est entre vos mains, dans les 10 jours, la France, à force de bonne volonté, de pas faits les uns vers les autres, d'efforts et de compréhension, la France aura son budget, aura ses budgets, ce qui sera un signal de responsabilité, de stabilité, adressé à ceux qui sont les premiers concernés, à ceux qui s'inquiètent à juste titre, à nos concitoyens. Et c'est de cela que vous déciderez. C'est pourquoi, Madame la Présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs les députés, j'ai l'honneur d'engager, en vertu de l'article 49 alinéa 3 de la Constitution, la responsabilité du gouvernement sur le texte de la commission mixte paritaire, complété d'amendements techniques et de coordination. Je vous remercie.
Merci.
French Education Minister Elisabeth Borne has announced stricter inspections following a fatal school bus crash on January 30th, which claimed the life of a 15-year-old girl and injured 20 other students. During a visit to the Emilia Zola school complex, where the victim was enrolled, Borne urged school officials to closely monitor reports about drivers to prevent future tragedies. The 26-year-old bus driver, who tested positive for cannabis, was charged on Friday with aggravated involuntary manslaughter and aggravated unintentional injury. He has been placed under judicial supervision, with prosecutors warning that he could face up to 7 years in prison if convicted.
Le ministre des Transports a également lancé une enquête accident. Notre objectif à tous, c'est naturellement qu'un tel drame ne se reproduise plus. Les contrôles aussi, le ministre de l'Intérieur et le ministre en charge des Transports l'ont annoncé, vont être renforcés. Et puis peut-être dire aussi que moi je vais demander à tous les recteurs d'être très attentifs à tous les signalements qui peuvent être faits sur des chauffeurs et qu'on travaille la main dans la main avec les collectivités pour avoir les réactions qui s'imposent.
A former British soldier, Daniel Khalife, has been sentenced to 14 years and 3 months in prison on Monday for espionage and terrorism offences. Khalife, 23, was found guilty for spying for Iran and escaping from custody before his trial. Over a 2.5-year period, he collected sensitive military information, including the names of Special Forces personnel while stationed in the UK and the US. Khalife, who has Iranian heritage, contacted Iranian intelligence during his army service and even attempted to become a double agent. Khalife visited Turkey to meet with his Iranian contacts and received payment on 2 occasions in exchange for the information he provided. In September 2023, he escaped from a London prison, triggering a nationwide manhunt. Authorities expressed concern over the danger of Khalife's actions posed to national security and military personnel.
You did not start out deliberately with an intention to harm the interests of the United Kingdom. You embarked on the course of conduct I have described because of a selfish desire to show off, to achieve by unregulated means what you were told would be difficult for you to achieve by conventional promotion. The mere fact that you started on this dangerous and fantastical plan demonstrates your immaturity and lack of wisdom. The only sentence open to me is one of immediate custody. Anyone who is prepared to betray his country and subject serving soldiers to an increased risk of harm must be punished. The total sentence is therefore 14 years and 3 months. Thank you. You may go down.
But De Wever has officially taken office as Belgium's new prime minister after being sworn in on Monday alongside 14 members of his government before King Philippe at the Royal Palace in Brussels. His appointment follows a hard-fought coalition deal reached late Friday after 7 months of negotiations, marking a significant rightward shift in Belgium's political landscape. De Wever, a nationalist from Dutch-speaking Flanders, becomes the first of his kind to lead the country. A staunch law and order advocate, De Wever's coalition has already pledged a crackdown on irregular migration. His party, the N-VAR, is aligned with the hard-right ECR group in the European Parliament, which includes members from the parties of Italian Prime Minister Giorgio Melania, and Czech leader Petr Fiala. And you're welcome back. An explosion at a luxury residential complex in Moscow on Monday has left 1 person dead and 4 others injured, including a Ukrainian separatist fighter. State media reports that Arman Sarkisian, a former boxing official from eastern Ukraine who founded a battalion to fight against Kyiv, was among the wounded. Initial reports claimed he had been killed, but later updates confirmed he survived. Authorities believe the blast was caused by an explosive device which destroyed the building's lobby and caused significant damage. Russia has witnessed a series of assassination and mysterious explosions since launching its full-scale offensive against Ukraine. Investigations into the incident are ongoing. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis has urged calm following a wave of seismic tremors that have rattled the tourist island of Santorini, prompting mass departures. Speaking from Brussels, he said that authorities were closely monitoring what he described as a very intense geological phenomenon in recent days. The Aegean Sea Islands, including Santorini, has experienced hundreds of traumas since last week, with the strongest recorded at a magnitude 4.9. Authorities have responded by deploying rescue units, closing schools, and restricting access to areas at risk of rock slides. Many of the island's 15,000 residents spend the night outdoors, while others are evacuating by sea and air. Santorini, one of Greece's top travel destinations, welcomed 3.4 million visitors in 2023.
Έχουμε να διαχειριστούμε ένα πολύ έντονο γεωλογικό φαινόμενο. Θέλω να ζητήσω από τους νησιώτες μας πρώτα και πάρα πολλά να είναι ψύχρεμοι, να ακούνε τις οδηγίες της πολιτικής προστασίας και έχω επίσης ζητήσει από το αρμόδιο Υπουργείο εντός των επόμενων ημερών να κάνει μια συνολική παρουσίαση, επιστημονική παρουσίαση των γεωλογικών δεδομένων, έτσι ώστε όλοι να γνωρίζουν τι είναι το φαινόμενο το οποίο πρέπει να διαχειριστούμε.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has told Panama's resident the country must reduce alleged Chinese influence over the Panama Canal or face potential retaliation from America. It is Marco Rubio's first foreign trip as America's top diplomat and comes as President Mulino has so far resisted pressure from the U.S. For News Central, international correspondent Afia Hagen has more.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has issued a stern directive to Panama, insisting on swift modifications to what he describes as China's dominance and oversight of the Panama Canal. The leading American diplomat declared that Panama must take action, or the U.S. would implement necessary steps to safeguard its treaty-based rights with the nation. The statement follows President Donald Trump's declaration to reclaim the canal and subsequent discussions between Rubio and Panama's right-wing leader, President Mulino, in Panama City on Sunday. The two officials appear to leave their lengthy discussion with contrasting views. Mulino informed journalists that he perceived no genuine risk of American military intervention to capture the canal, indicating he had suggested expert-level discussions with the U.S. to tackle Trump's worries about Chinese involvement. Nevertheless, Trump's pledge to recapture the canal has triggered considerable opposition in Panama. Demonstrators in Panama City on Friday set fire to representations of Trump and Rubio. Law enforcement officers confronted another group of protesters, deploying tear gas and forcibly removing individuals. While the confrontations were minor, the opposition to the U.S. president's position is deeply rooted.
All illegal entry.
Mr. Trump's remarks about the canal included an unsubstantiated assertion that Chinese military personnel are running it. He also claimed American vessels faced unfair charging practices, despite such discrimination being prohibited under treaty arrangements. The waterway is actually under Panamanian government ownership and management, governed by a neutrality agreement signed with the U.S. years ago. However, Chinese enterprises have made substantial investments in ports and terminals near the canal. Yet President Trump's forceful stance, including his refusal to dismiss military action to seize the canal, has sparked a deeply nationalistic response in a small but strategically vital country. Despite Panama's strong alliance with the US on numerous fronts, Marco Rubio's diplomatic mission aims to convey the administration's firm stance against nations embracing Chinese investments in what America considers its circle of influence. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
Palestinians in Jenin, a refugee camp, have begun burying their loved ones killed during the Israeli military operation in the northern occupied West Bank. The Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has condemned the offensive, calling it ethnic cleansing. The Palestinian Health Ministry reports that 70 people have been killed in the West Bank so far this year. In a statement, presidential spokesperson Nabil Abu Rudinin accused Israeli forces of escalating their comprehensive war against Palestinians and an effort to displace citizens. The Israeli military launched its offensive on January 21st, targeting armed groups in Jenin, an area long associated with Palestinian resistance.
14 يوم نحاول بالتنسيق مع الارتباط المدني وقوات الاحتلال من أجل دفن شهدائنا منذ 14 يوم، ونحن نعيش في وضع صعب ومأساوي صعب وهم موجودين في الثلاجات. فالحمد لله رب العالمين امبارح كان في تنسيق، لكن بسبب الظروف اللي حصلت في المخيم والتفجيرات تم تأجيله إلى اليوم الساعة 7 صباحا. اليوم تم عمل تنسيق لدفن سبع شهداء. طبعا لو الحضور قليل بالنسبة للناس، حملناهم في سيارات الإسعاف وتوجهنا لمقبرة الشهداء المخيم وتم دفنهم.
And that's all we can take from beyond the continents. It's back to the continent. But remember that if you are outside of the African continent, you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 4221, Star Times channel 274. We're also on Apple TV. And from around the world, you can stream us live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Judith at TV. Good night.